Rambam, we are in the laws of shchita, of slaughter. Hmm. And what makes kosher slaughtering? All right. There, you can see from these laws that very precise in slaughtering and what makes something valid and kosher. Give me a brief moment, folks. Okay. Right. Yeah, 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 yeah. My apologies, folks. 1 second. What am I sharing here? Fused. Mhm. Okay. All right. There we go. Amazing. All right. So all the intricacies. What is meant by nekuva? There are different. Kuva means like a hole, perforated. Okay, hole, perforated. Yeah. There are 11 organs that if there's a perforation of the slightest size that reaches their inner cavity, the animal is treif. Treif means, as we learned, like we use it colloquially for anything that's not kosher, but it's really more specifically, it means something about the animal, excuse me, that is like here, 11 organs that have a perforation of the slightest measure. It means that that animal will not live out a year. Okay? So it means it's not a healthy animal physically. And therefore, even though you slaughtered it properly, right? Everything you did properly, but the animal's not kosher. Okay? So they are the entrance of the gullet, the membrane of the brain in the skull, the heart and its large arteries, the gallbladder, right? So even as any slightest perforation, the arteries leading to the liver, the maw, the stomach, the abdomen, the gut, the intestines, the lung, and the bronchia. All of them. We've already mentioned that the definition of the entrance of the gullet refers to the portion of the esophagus above the gullet, which is not fit for ritual slaughter. If there's a perforation of slightest size that reaches the inner cavity of the animal, is treif. You know what boggles the mind is like I don't believe that even a veterinarian knows all this stuff. you know, that we're going to learn over here of the, you know, and maybe I mean I'm sure they know things that they're not here either. But yeah, I'm saying the intricacy of the law of an animal to know, you know, the inner workings of the animal and what when someone slaughters an animal, what they got to look for. Now, some of the things you got to look for, some of the things not necessarily you have to look for, but if they're found. Anyways, laws will deal with that. Okay. The brain in the skull has two membranes. If the outer one near the skull bone alone is perforated, the animal is permitted. Right? If the lower one near the brain is perforated, it is treif. Okay. With regard to the portion where the brain extends to the spinal cord, the portion below the glands where the neck begins, the laws governing the perforation of the membranes change. If they are perforated beyond the glands, the animal is permitted. Okay. When the brain itself is perforated or crushed, the animal is acceptable if the membrane is intact. Well, that's interesting. What does that mean exactly? The animal is still able to function. Uh-huh. That's interesting. Crushed. What does it mean that it's crushed? How is it able to function? I obviously can't mean completely. I don't know. If, however, it degenerates to the extent that it can be poured out like water, the melts and wax the animal is straight because, yeah. Okay. When there's a perforation of the heart to its inner cavity, Whether the larger cavity on the left or the smaller cavity on the right, the animal is straight. If, however, the flesh of the heart is perforated, but the perforation does not reach the inner cavity, the animal is permitted. The truth is, folks, I must be honest with you. Without seeing pictures, and even seeing pictures, like just, I don't know what this, the deeper understanding behind, like the reality over here. Got to be a good farmer. The arteries leading to the heart and the lung is considered as the heart itself. If there's a perforation of the slightest size that reaches its inner cavity, the animal is straight. When the gallbladder is perforated and the liver seals it, the animal is permitted. If, however, the perforated is not sealed, it is straight even if the perforation is located close to the liver. Okay. You know what I feel like? I'll be very honest. I'm saying words. You know, if I was a veterinarian, maybe I would appreciate and understand maybe a little more. Actually, I'm gonna call up a veterinarian and ask them to read this and ask them if they understand this at all and if this makes sense to if they like learn this at all. But well, I do want to bring out an interesting point over here, and that is um, the laws of kosher. The Hasidus explains is like the idea of you are what you eat. And if you eat something kosher, so you're consuming something that is a reflection of the divine will, and therefore makes you more aligned and sensitive to the divine will. When you eat, when someone who is Jewish and eats non, this is a law that, applies to someone's Jewish, these laws. So when you eat these things, of course, someone who isn't Jewish wants to eat this way is also, not prohibited from it, but they're not obliged, right? Uh, yeah, Jewish veterinarian, yeah. Actually, she is, but I don't know, and she has a kosher home, so. um, but by eating on kosher, it's not in accordance with the will of God, means that what you're eating makes you less sensitive to the divine, makes you less sensitive to the divine will and divine and your divine purpose because you're not aligned. And kosher is a very fundamental, in a certain way, like almost the most important thing that a Jew will do is eat kosher because it's a real expression of God's presence in your life. Because we eat every day. You know, I mean, we have a few fast days a year, but we eat every day. It's an essential element of humanness. It's an essential element of people's pleasure in life. And that you imbue that with the divine will is an expression, a real deeper expression of your connection to God. Even though people will say, well, it's important what comes out of your mouth, because what was in your mouth was a difference. It's food, right? That's the whole point, is that what comes into your mouth of the material world is a way that you can have a relationship with God in the material world and not just in the spirit of this world. And ultimately, God wants a dwelling place in this low world, and food, can really bring us down. We can be, a form of higher connection or a form of, just as they say, pigging out, which is an easy thing to do for all of us, on some level. All right, folks, God bless you. Sorry for the delay today. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Oh, tonight we're gonna have the Torah studies tonight. Okay, 7:30 tonight.
7:30. Okay.
Reminder. Okay, 7:30 tonight.
Thank you.